Joining us via Skype is lawyer and political strategist Charles Omole. Good afternoon, Mr. Omole, and thank you for joining us.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me.
How possible is it that we're having a conversation bordering on extrajudicial killings and human rights abuses, even with the ravaging coronavirus?
Well, the challenge we face with extrajudicial killing in Nigeria is, I think, shows a systemic problem, because if you look at the reports of the National Human Rights Commission, practically all the paramilitary and policing agencies were indicted. Police, were indicted. Civil defense, the army were indicted. Even the state task force, people put together by governors were also indicted. So it shows that it's not just a police problem. It's anybody in authority in Nigeria just seems to have this penchant for abuse of that power. And for me, there are 4 key reasons why that is the case.
The UN warned before now that world leaders will be careful to tread with caution during this period to avoid such abuses. What sort of orientation is our leadership missing?
Well, I think when we talk about our leadership, because you have to understand here, we have to lay, there's a strategic fault that lies with overall leadership, regardless of which party is in power. But the real culprit here really are the individual officers, involved in this. And like I said, there are several reasons why that is the case. Number one, for example, is poor training. All our civil our policing agencies are poorly trained. Poor weapon training, poor training in terms of how to handle, how to de-escalate situations, so to speak. These are ongoing training that is missing. Then also you have a lack of effective, what I call defensive equipment. That's the second problem. Less than 2% of our police, for example, have bulletproof vests, for example. So the gun that is given to them, that's supposed to be purely an offensive weapon, is now used for both offense and defense. So that there's the increased use of firearms needlessly there. Of course, the third reason is, what I call poor accountability system and mechanism. For example, the best practice all over the world is that if somebody in a paramilitary agency, the police, is involved in a shooting, the first thing you do is you take away their weapon, you put them on desk duty, and you investigate that shooting, whether it's good or bad shooting. Good shooting is considered a shooting that follows the protocol and the rules of engagement. And bad shooting, of course, is the one that contravenes that. And so until that determination is made, that officer is going to be on desk duty. But in Nigeria, a police officer could shoot somebody today and you see him tomorrow back on the street. I must say, under the current IG, it is getting better because more police officers have been sort of held account to many of their abuses. But it's a long way to go. There's a lot of reorientation and retraining needed. And of course, the last cause of this is what I call impunity that is caused by corruption. Because when all these officers go around collecting little money all over the place, they do, it is true, not in all cases, but in many cases, they deliver back to their bosses back at the station. So telling a police officer on the street, I'm going to report you to your DPO, is no longer a deterrent because the DPO is in on it. So the impunity culture has developed. So that is why you are seeing police, civil defense, task force, and everybody killing Nigerians.
There have also been pockets of reports indicating extorting of Nigerians by security agencies manning the roads. Isn't this a show of corruption that should not be tolerated at all levels at all?
Look, listen, I have various links to the police. If you check my WhatsApp message, half of them are from senior police officers on a daily basis. That was someone who told me just yesterday that he heard the police officer say, if you cannot build a house out of this corona lockdown, you'll never be able to make money to build a house as a police officer. So, that's a joke. So they are extorting. There's no other way to say it. But like I said, the current police leadership, they are doing better than their predecessors. But they have a long way to go in convincing Nigerians and making it more open and transparent. Now the police complaints response unit, they are a lot more responsive than they've ever been in my own assessment. They are doing better, but culture that has taken 30 years to build cannot be removed in 30 days. So it has to be an ongoing, re-education and retraining and reskilling of these police officers.
Now, Mr. Omole, the House requested Buhari to direct heads of security agencies implicated in the human rights abuses and extrajudicial killings to immediately fish out the perpetrators for prosecution and punishment according to the law. Are you confident that cases as this will not be swept under the carpet?
Well, I mean, if you're asking me if I can bet my house on it, the answer is no. I mean, the House can say what they like in that sense, but I probably would say it's going to be a mixed picture. Some people will be held account, others will not. And ironically, the challenge is now that unless you have what I call ironclad evidence, the default of many of these paramilitary of these security agencies is not to do anything. So you've got to have videos, audios, pictures, stuff like that. And so cases that have such ironclad evidence, I'm sure they will do something about. The others, that is just a matter of report, word of mouth report, no clear evidence in that sense. Most likely, they will probably sweep those ones under the sheets. Yes. Finally,
what policies or strategies should we adopt as a nation to see a reduction in issues as these, or a total stop to issues of human rights abuses?
Well,
especially by agencies, our security agencies.
Yes, I mean, one thing I've always known that is always clear, that any Nigerians know, is that Nigerians always respond more to deterrence than anything else. We saw during the first regime of Buhari, when we started this war against indiscipline and crossing the express was made a crime, or more or less, Nigerians complied. Because of deterrence. So what actually needs to happen here is these security agencies need to not only discipline their officers, they need to do it speedily, transparently, and report it. When people are seeing several officers being dismissed or disciplined for these things, the message will go around to all the other officers that, okay, this is no longer a joke. So until we see more visible, the IG team are doing well, but they need to ramp it up. They need to be more visible. They need to be more speedy in their responses. Make examples of officers that breach the rules. And as you do that, the rest will get the message.
Dr. Charles Omole, it's been a pleasure having you join us on News on the Hour.
Thanks for having me.